a very nice introduction. I think that's our cue, Jamie.
That's our,
Uh,
like, we are recording, we are live.
thanks for the great introduction. I'm Josh Martin, former Chief Data Officer from the state of Indiana, and helped to develop the statewide data and analytics agency called the Management Performance Hub.
And like Agatha said, I'm Jamie Kimes. I'm the founder of the Idea Garden, and I love making complicated things simple. Today, we're really going to be talking about insights on strategy, productivity, and inclusion when it comes to AI. This might feel a little bit theoretical and not quite as hands-on, but we are hoping to give you tools that you can take and go and apply in your organization today, even. Any questions that you have, Josh and I work together a lot and we love participation, right, Josh? Like the more
Absolutely.
stuff in the chat, questions, raise your hand, get involved wherever you'd like. Um,
Jamie loves reaction emojis.
yes. Oh, and I'm sure a lot of you see this and it's like one of 55 slides. Like, are you kidding me? Josh asked me that. He's like, Jamie, what? 55 slides? Josh, what are your thoughts on the 55 slides?
Yeah, it's not as much as it seems. Jamie drives fast.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just because there are very few words on slides. So it's not because we're going to go through that much dense information.
And the ones that are text heavy, you're going to have access to this that you can always refer to back if we don't cover every single word on the slide, which we will not.
Exactly. Okay, so today when we talk about designing AI, we're really talking about AI adoption and adoption strategy, specifically with humans in mind. Human-centered, to use a very cliche consulting-ish term, and with a focus on how to bring in inclusion, how to focus on productivity, etc. So I want you, anytime you see this little pink question mark, well, the black question mark on the pink background, it's your clue to just get involved. It's not the only time you can get involved, but please get involved. And today we're going to be talking about these three things. Josh, you want to go over these?
Yeah, just the designing an AI adoption strategy for humans, the three functions of that, foundational, implementation, and the impacts of that. And we'll talk a little about the AI dialogues, which is something that Jamie and I co-founded.
And then we're going to try to leave a lot of time for your questions because I think there's a lot of value in question and answer, especially with somebody like Josh here today. All right, so with the foundation, if you had to, here's your question. If you had to design an AI adoption strategy for humans, what would you include? You can just drop some things in the chat. Let me make sure I'm down at the. What would be the first things that come to your mind? Like include humans. Thank you, Joseph. That's awesome. Ethics, for sure. Let's see if a couple more come in. If not, we'll keep on moving. Consider bias. Yep. Language access, require human evaluation of suggestions, testing, trust, avoid discrimination. Yes, 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 for everything coming on here. So the base of what we're about to present really proposes three things. Okay, my phone is going off because my son has this thing that if he wants to get my attention, he hits find my phone on my phone. Okay, so we propose three different things. Number one, AI adoption is both an individual and an organizational decision. This is really important because all over everything, you're going to hear things like AI is here and we don't have a choice. We've got to do it. We don't have a choice. That is not true. Everyone has a choice. And it's easy to forget. And Josh, I'd love to have your thoughts on this, but it's easy to think this is just an organizational decision and forget that every single person in your organization has to make a personal decision about how they're going to interact with this technology. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, like very different than a formal system implementation that a lot of us are probably used to, where there's a big system build and then they're going to bring it online and it's very rigid and you have to learn all of these different step-by-step things. When we're talking about AI, it's bringing in new tooling. And the organization has to be at a level of maturity and understanding that they're going to make this a priority. And the individuals have to also think about how they're going to prioritize this. How are they going to, use this for skill development? We use it as a great opportunity to free up some time by automating some manual processes. So, I mean, it's a team sport. The same as data is a team sport. Thinking about AI, adopting AI is an entire team sport.
And unlike the other implementations that Josh is talking about, not if you think about big systems that you have in your divisions or your agencies, people don't go home and use those same systems at home, right? With AI, they're using it at the workplace and they're using it at home. So it's both individuals and organizations. Also, long-term strategy with AI requires very broad and diverse perspectives. Maybe never before, my son has got to stop this.
So if you're using AI at home, throw up one of the rocket ship emoji reactions. Let's see
Yes,
how many people are using AI at home while Jamie handles her.
I turned my phone off.
I,
Okay. Yes. So what I was saying is that perhaps more than any other technology really ever, it is so important that everyone, I love that, Josh, that everyone stay involved in this conversation. There has to be very broad and diverse perspectives in the world and in every organization and team. And third, when humans are invested and engaged in something, good things happen, right? Goals are achieved, the outcomes that we want to have, they happen because people do things that they care about, right? So our approach that we're going to talk about today is really three things: teach, listen, and adapt. And Josh, what am I about to say about this?
we don't like triangles because they're not reality. We don't, I mean, we've been looking at these for so long, but this is really what it's more like.
Yes, and you'll see in a lot of things that we do, we use this shape because, yeah, it is three different things, but all of them overlap and intertwine and are interdependent on each other. So let's start out today with how we can do this, implementing this strategy. So a teach, listen, adapt approach to AI adoption, starting with teaching. Number one, the question usually is, who do we teach? Right? There's a lot of different people in our organization. Josh, we get this question all the time, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, do you teach the executives? Do you start at the top? Do you just do tons of hands-on workshop with those that are at the usual level, fingers on keyboards, or where do you get started? Who needs to learn, Jamie?
Well, I'm about to put something on the screen, but I'd be interested. People feel free to put it in the chat. This is what we say. Everyone needs to be taught about this technology, about AI. I know that AI is a very broad term, so there's lots of different specific tools that are AI. But as a concept about what AI is, how it works, how to be responsible, ethics, these things, everyone in your organization needs to be taught. It's about as ubiquitous as email, or internet. It's that level of where just everyone uses it. So these are things that I think are really interesting that we hear a lot when we're working with organizations. They'll say we only need to train the people who have access to a specific tool. Maybe they're rolling something out like Copilot or Gemini or I
ChatGPT,
exactly.
Claude.
I saw the logos in my head and I didn't have the words. Yeah, all of them. Maybe they're doing some type of a rollout and they're like, okay, we're only going to train the people who have access. And then there's a thing of we need to train our executives first. We have to start from the top and go down. And Josh, as an executive, I'm interested
Yeah,
in your thoughts on that perspective.
yeah, that's a really interesting question because so many executives feel like they have to have their head or their hands around this whole thing, or they're the ones that are going to meet with the vendors that are really going to be trying to sell these special tools to implement AI. But really, the executives just need to have a different level of understanding, but everybody needs to understand. That way, we can get a solid feedback loop on what's happening. AI is an opportunity for massive innovation, for massive improvements. And if you're not including anybody, you're missing out on opportunities.
It's very true. And the other thing that folks say is we can't do training until we have a tool. And this is, yeah, Josh is just shaking. Yeah, it's because they think, oh, we don't really know. We don't have an AI policy yet. We don't have any kind of governance set up yet. And because of that, we just aren't going to do any kind of training. But in the meantime, folks are probably at home with working, right, with a computer right beside their work computer, using this stuff on their phone, using this stuff. So it's something that no matter where you are in your AI maturity or your data maturity process as an individual or as a team or as an org, training is absolutely important all the time. Next question. Who do we teach? No, this is the same question. Sorry. We teach everyone. Starting with users. So we have broken it up into 3 groups. So if you start with users, when we say users, that is pretty much everyone, but at a minimum, everyone who will be using Gen AI tools. Well, we define what tool refers to here, any open AI tool. Good question, Josh. Do you want to address that one?
I cited in there, but this is relevant to any tool, whether it's ChatGPT, Gemini, working within Gemini Studio or Google AI Studio, working with a tool like Kindo.ai, AI, which is a middleware platform that was developed with by cybersecurity nerds, all who I've met and love, fortunately. And it's got data loss protection and security in mind. They built from the ground up that, and a lot of their customer focus is on those that are doing DevSecOps, but they've got a lot of the cool tools in there and a very generous free tier where you can actually access all sorts of different models, whether it be ChatGPT, whether it be Llama from Meta, whether it's Claude from Anthropic, all of those different models are called from AIs, from AI APIs, AI through API. So it doesn't really matter which tool we're talking about. They all do a lot of the same things or very similar things. So there's so many front ends that have been put out there by each of those independent vendors. Like you can go to meta.ai and you can use Llama. You can go to, Gemini.ai and use Gemini. But there's things that are out there that are safe spaces. You don't have to put any of your data into it. You can use it for brainstorming. You can use it as conversations. We've heard someone that AI is their boyfriend because they're spending so much time talking to
Don't
it.
say it. Don't say it on a recorded call. But yeah, yeah, somebody's husband was like, "Are you going to go talk to your boyfriend?" It really does apply to any tool, but the tools that we see the most right now in terms of public sector agencies is everyone's kind of trying to figure out what that generative AI tool is going to be. So are they going to use Gemini? Are they going to use Copilot? Are they going to use ChatGPT? So a lot of this is around those as well. Um, Operational management also needs different types of training, right? So they're the middle management, they're your people in leadership who are closer to the programs. They're going to be the people who are responsible probably with figuring out who gets licenses, for operationalizing whatever happens in your agency around AI, even on the bigger use cases, and creating a real culture of AI. So just think of operational. I know that's a vague term, but just like is that middle tier of leadership. And then executives. So I saw something the other day that I thought was absolutely brilliant. And it was saying that a lot of the problems in terms of AI adoption are because there is a literacy gap where executives just simply don't understand what we're talking about. They don't understand AI, they don't understand the implications, they don't understand the risk, they don't understand the benefits. So executives absolutely need to be trained as well. This is one of my favorite parts when we talk about inclusion, because like we said, it is so important that all people, all levels, all ways of thinking. I'm not going to respond to that, Joseph, either, but that's
I'm just
the second time you've made me laugh.
it's a fact.
Right. So when it comes to training, let's say you say, okay, I'm either going to try to bring training in because I have that decision-making authority in my agency to affect this, or I'm going to go and talk to someone who I think can bring training in. One of the things that you can really suggest is that right at the beginning, whenever you have your training, you communicate about it to the entire organization. A great thing is to actually go and meet with your HR team. They have a list of every single person who works at your organization and say, we want this training to be available to everyone. Go and talk with your DEI team. Maybe they have specific ways of making sure that they're including all of the groups in special communications, potentially to make sure that you're bringing that inclusion into all of the trainings. What we often see is that organizations want to start training people that they know are going to be using it or the obvious people. And they
I,
don't
lo-
necessarily, go ahead.
I love this question from Alexander in the chat is, how do we approach this when it's moving so fast? It's here today. The rate of change is happening. How do we get through those real technical bounds? And really the technical jargon is from the salespeople. I mean, it's not, there's not a lot of, really deep things that you need to understand about AI. You don't need to understand the machine learning models it was done on, the different, neural networks that it's using, what are the platforms that are what's the data behind it, they're using a ton of data. They're using a ton of different, very high power compute, machine learning, neural networking tools. But really, you just have to understand what it can and can't do. And then part of that is as you're using it, I mean, hands on, be curious, be using these things. The way that you're going to learn AI is by getting your fingers into it. So you're going to continue to use it over and over and over again, and then that's going to be how you're going to be able to keep up with things in your workspace. But hopefully AI is going to make your work life a little easier and free up some time for you so that you can have that time and space to continue building your own skills and keeping your finger on the pulse of what happens. And it's always really good if you can find, a good blog, a good newsletter, a good information source that is keeping you updated in language that you can understand, because all of us, sorry, I'm a very deep technical reader. Not very many people are, because I'm just a huge nerd. So that's what really speaks to me. I love diving deep. I understand that I can move through it quickly. And then I love to get fingers on keyboards. Other folks just need it very, give me the basics of it. Talk to me like I'm 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's true that I like what you said about the jargon, right? Because if someone's only using jargon, they probably don't actually 100% understand it. Because if they really understand it, they can't explain it in simple terms. So when it comes to inclusion, make sure that right from the beginning, you're talking with your HR team, your DEI team, etc. Then what you think, okay, we're going to do this training. Who do we teach? I mean, what do we teach? There are specific things that everyone needs to know. So when we talk about users, and you can find so many resources, the fact that we are on with Innovate US right now is perfect, because Innovate US has a ton of free resources about exactly what we're talking about now. They have their Agatha, I think the name of it is Using Generative AI for Public Sector Professionals, or something. That is an amazing, great on-demand free course that you can use in your organization. But users need to know what AI is and how it works in plain language. Yes, Agatha just put the link in the chat. They need to know your AI policies if you have them. Like, what are your rules? Are they allowed to use the ChatGPT? Are they allowed to use Gemini? All of these different things. They need to know about privacy. And I know this had come into the chat. What to do about PII, PHI, etc. They need to know about responsible and ethical use, how to look for bias. They need to know about the risks, how to mitigate the risks. They also need to know the open record implications. So almost every state has some type of an open record law. And so how does that apply? Like, are there prompts, things that are going to be subject to open record? What parts of what they put into a tool are going to be subject for open record? They also want to see what's happening in real life. So real life use cases, and they need to have basic prompting skills. When we talk about education, and I love to say that Josh and I are approaching this as educators first, because really we don't care what you decide to do in your organization with AI, but it does matter that you have an educated workforce that knows how to make these decisions. So everyone to be equipped to be in the workplace needs to have basic to intermediate prompting skills. So that is something. And again, there's so many resources that you can find to put these trainings together. Operational management needs to know all those things, but they also need to know about like what's happening at a federal level. They need to know about governance. They need to know about how to set up use case identification. And Josh, you are in the weeds on operational. So if you were to say like a tip for operational, what would you say? Are you frozen? He's frozen. I think he's in a rural part of Indiana today. So we'll keep on going. Yes. The third group, so executives, what do they need to know? Executives probably aren't going to have the time to get like really into the weeds necessarily, but they do need to know basically what's going on federally, etc. They need to know about bias. They need to know about the risks. They need to know about how to mitigate the risks. And most of all, they need to be equipped with a perspective to be able to set a vision for their organization. So that's what's really important for executives. Josh got off, so now he's going to come back on. Alexander, interesting. You said interesting point. When you say interesting point, which one? You can come off mute or you can just put it in the chat while we're waiting for Josh. And Salmini said, one thought for users. Users need to know whether their use case is really viable on OpenAI tools today. Yeah, a lot of times people think that this technology can do things that it can't do, or that maybe it shouldn't do. All right, so the next part that we get to in this approach is listening. And this is where I think things get really, really exciting, is listening. So if you have taught all these different folks in your organization and they're now becoming literate about AI, be prepared to be surprised. So I was involved in a project and it was an amazing project, but as we started educating everyone, one day in one of the classes, this one person said, it was a gentleman, and he just said something about being neurodivergent. He was like, I'm neurodivergent, and this technology has changed my life. He was like, I feel like I can come to work and now I can figure out where I want to start my day. I can make it so that I can be concise when I can't usually be concise, because I can just word vomit into, I think Gemini was the tool we were using, word vomit into Gemini, and it'll help me be concise. And because we were listening, we picked up on that and said, wow, I wonder how many other people are also neurodivergent. It turned out that in this particular group that we were working with, almost 20% of the people were neurodivergent in this group. And I actually have one of those folks here today, and I really wanted her to be able to share some of her story. But her name, Vanessa, are you on the call? I see there you are.
I am.
Yes. So
So,
Vanessa is, I was just going to introduce you really quick.
yeah,
Vanessa,
going.
I love Vanessa's story, but she was one of the folks that was in this program and became really influential in the group because she was so open about her neurodivergence and how this technology was impacting her. So Vanessa, go ahead and please share.
Thank you, Jamie. Yep, I was a part of a project where I got to try Gen AI. Neurodivergence is not just a buzzword. It actually means that your brain works differently than what is considered norm. So anybody with autism, Down syndrome, dyslexia, bipolar, they all have neurodivergence. My specific flavor is the ADHD. And actually, I was diagnosed in my late 30s. I have a young child. She's a daughter. And I was getting her tested. And lo and behold, the ADHD is actually carried on the X chromosome. So one of her parents had to give it to her. And apparently, through testing, that was me. And honestly, getting diagnosed was amazing because it really helped me understand why coffee helps me sleep. An entire pot of coffee, I sleep like a baby. I have hyper focused at work to the point where the cleaners came in and asked me if I was leaving anytime tonight, not even realizing everybody had left. As you can tell, my brain goes about 1 million times a minute, which affects my writing, my typing, and my talking, which is why I got into this project for Gen AI, because I have really bad word recall, where my brain knows the word, but my mouth can't talk about it, or says the wrong one, or I don't know, goes off on a tangent. Um, and I also have problems with reading stuff where I read a sentence and my brain didn't understand it, so it creative writes whatever it feels like. So you can imagine all of this stuff is very probably hard to navigate in the professional world. What it's actually called is a cognitive learning disorder. It's actually one of the things that having ADHD prones you for. So, when you're having so many problems and you're in a professional world, it's really hard for your internal intelligence to show on the outside. And it actually caused a lot of problems. I had employers that told me that I was dumb, I was unintelligent, I was illiterate. And so I've actually had employers make me go through English classes or business tech writing because my cognitive learning disorder was such a problem that I looked juvenile in all of my writing. So that led me to Gen AI, and it's not just the Gen AI that you put a prompt into and you get an answer. There's Gen AI out there in all of the spelling. If you do any of the pro writing aids or Grammarly's or those things, they have Gen AI now. And what they do is they learn the user and they can help with grammar and syntax and spelling. And that was one of my first introductions into Gen AI, and it helps me a lot be able to put proper words into sentences so that way what is in my brain is actually translating out. There's also Gen AI that helps me. It turns text into voice. It reads me complicated text so I can understand it. It can also take, like a dragon, it can take your voice and put it into written, which I am much better speaker than I am emailer or texter or writer, all those things. I've had Gen AI summarize emails. With ADHD, you have troubles with big things and trying to get them into a manageable slice, if you will. So I can take Gen AI, I can ask it to review text or emails or maybe a giant paper and tell me what the main concepts are and what the main summary is. It can adjust language. So I can, like in ChatGPT's or Gemini's, you could take words. And I am not the greatest writer, remember. So if y'all are worried about working with Gen AI, if I can use it, anybody can use it. I can take my jumbled chaos, I can throw it into one of those ChatGPT's or Gemini's, and it can spit out a more cohesive text that maybe is at a reading level that someone else can understand, or it can, or if I don't understand something, I can throw it in there and say, dumb this down for me, or make it more intelligent for me. So it can adjust your readability and your language. It can reword things to make things make sense. I can put in prompts that I don't think it's going to get, and it understands me because we learn each other over time. And I could also take big tasks and tiny it and bring them down to little tasks. It could take something that's huge, a giant project, and you could say, break this down for me. And it does. It breaks it down in smaller chunks. Basically, all I want to say is that don't worry about Gen AI. It's once you start using it, it's really easy. And also for all of those that have a neurospicy like me, trust me, this is a really good technology, and it's really helping us look the same as what the normals are. So thank you for letting me talk, Jamie.
I love your story, Vanessa. I love having you talk. Especially because you being able to share what ended up happening as Vanessa started sharing in the group, and this goes back to inclusion, right? Is that a lot of other people started sharing too. We found out that 20% of the people in the group were actually neurodivergent. Many of them had been diagnosed as adults. Many of them hadn't realized that they were until they ran into problems at work, etc. And all of them were finding a place in a community around this technology where they were feeling like they belonged or like they fit for some of the first times. Some of them said even for the first time in their lives. I'm going to start sharing my screen again, but Vanessa, thank you so much for being vulnerable. I know you're a big champion for neurodivergence in Colorado and really
Absolutely love
appreciate
to
you.
help. Thank you.
All right, let me just make sure I hit share here. Neurodiverse challenges are very broad, but some of the most common that we've seen are executive functioning. So getting exhausted by having to make a lot of decisions throughout the day. Generative AI can really help with that. I mean, they'll put all this brain dump in and say, what should I do first? Social communication. Sometimes folks who are on the spectrum will have a hard time being able to look at words and know if there's any type of passive aggressiveness in it or anything that's going to offend someone, and they can put it into a generative AI tool like ChatGPT or Gemini and say, hey, can you scan this for any type of passive aggressiveness or in high conflict situations, etc. task initiation, not knowing what to do first. A lot of times generative AI can really help get a head start. And I know, Josh, both of us are neurodivergent. So as a person, I'd be interested in you sharing, and welcome back, by the way. We missed you.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry, the quality of internet in Kendallville, Indiana, where I happen to be today is questionable. But the hotel internet just dropped out entirely. So luckily I had a fallback plan. But yeah, one of the other challenges with neurodiverse folks is, how to get ahead. Like, how do you kind of I think of my neurodiversity as a superpower personally. I can accomplish things so quickly in a lot of different spaces. I have no artistic capability. I have no eye for design. I can hardly match my clothes. Thank God there's AI that I use for shopping now. But how do you get into the mold, and how do you figure out throughout time and practice and patience, picking up on those emotional cues, picking up on when you're way over somebody's head. So when I was in college, the girlfriend that I was dating um, said, you need to learn to read lips. You need to learn to read lips because it helps you maintain eye contact. It helps you understand what's going on, and it helps you shut up.
Yeah, and someone put in the chat, I don't see whose name it was, but someone said, let's advocate for some nuance in the words that we say and not just say everyone is like this or neurodiversity is this. I could not agree more. And I think we're all learning how to talk about this. Maybe we don't know exactly how to talk about it. And the more that we learn, the more we realize that really all of us think in different ways. There's not just one homogenous way of thinking across the board. So absolutely, this conversation is to just bring up the topic as it applies to generative AI, and we are all learning and growing in how we learn to talk about it.
Yeah. How
Um,
many meetings have you been in where people are, essentially saying the same thing in two different ways, the same mental model? And it's really, how do you get people on the same mental model? Do you need to get on a whiteboard? Do you need to draw pictures, sketches? Is there, diversifying your communication skills? So that's just a lot of time what I've seen when there's even conflict in rooms, is that we're all kind of there for the same thing. We have the same goals. We're just on a different mental model.
Yes, exactly. And this is helping. I feel like AI is helping us see that, like almost making that visible where we can see that we're all on different mental models a little bit more. I think one of the biggest challenges is the workplace perception of different mental models. If you're somebody like Josh, like you can talk and talk and talk and talk, and you're not trying to be a know-it-all, right? But it's just because the brain is connecting this and this and this and this all at one time, and it all feels relevant. And so you start seeing that a lot of times the perception is that this person is too intense, this person talks too much, this person goes off topic, this person is a know-it-all, or this person is just dumb. And so I feel like the more we talk about these things, the more we can just see that we're all working from a different mental model, and AI is actually really helping in it. So getting back to inclusion, in your sessions, when you start doing training, make sure that you bring in speakers, and you can bring speakers. There are so many speakers in the country right now, just people in public sector who are willing to share what they're doing, what they're learning. You can bring them into your organization and just ask them to talk. You can also find internal people within your organization and just ask them to come and share what they're doing. And just make sure it's coming from broad perspectives, broad cultural perspectives, broad neuro perspectives, all over, so that my brain just went blank because I just like thought of 15 million different things as well. But Josh, do you want to fill this in? Because I know that this was a big priority for you as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so that you have the ability to reach different people in different ways. I mean, if it's just the Josh and Jamie show, we go back and forth really well together. We have things that complement each other, but that is just one method of bringing those things through. So how do we bring in some different perspectives? How do we bring in some folks that can explain things in a little different way and bring in their personal experience? I mean, so many important things that we talk about, we kind of just refer back to our personal experiences because that's how we learn.
Mm-hmm. It is. We learn so much from experience and from sharing and from hearing from sharing our own experiences and from hearing from all the other experiences as well. So if we go to adapt, right? So we've taught, now we've listened. As we've listened, we've been surprised. We've found out more about the people that we're teaching and about our community, about our organization. And now it's time to adapt, to take what we've heard and actually change what we do based on the feedback we're getting from the people in our organization. So to demonstrate this, I want to tell this story. I think this is fascinating. But there was a project that happened at the University of Cambridge, and this was just last year. So it was in July of 2024. There were 344 participants in this story, and it was based off in this simulation, and it was based off of an automotive industry simulation, which was a digital twin. And Josh, do you want to just really fast, without getting too much in the weeds, talk about what a digital twin is?
So basically, you look at the real thing and you create something that is identical, but not identical. It has all the same properties, so it becomes its digital twin.
Right, exactly. So it was the automotive industry digital twin, and how it was set up was that there was a group of undergrad and grad students competing against actually a group of senior banking executives and GPT 4.0. It was GPT 4.0 was the version at that time. All of them were competing with a virtual board. So their goals was they had to grow the company and they couldn't get fired by the virtual board. I don't know if anyone's heard this story, but I think it's so fascinating. It was every round of the game or of the simulation was based on one fiscal year, and there were 500,000 different decision combinations and no fixed winning formula. So what do you think happened? Who do you think got fired first? The students, the execs, or the GPT? You can drop it in the chat. I'd be interested to know what people think. Executives. Where is our faith? Where is our faith? This is execs. Okay, Joseph, you didn't say execs that time. You just laughed. I think you're just thinking we were just going to assume you were thinking execs. Okay. Actually, so GPT 4.0 consistently performed top human participants on nearly every metric, but it got fired faster. Now, for those of you who said execs, the execs were a very close number too. So GPT 4.0 and the execs actually got fired the fastest. They started out really strong. Okay, so they looked at growth, they were optimizing, they were efficient, they were getting their quick wins. At one point, I think they were even like years ahead of the competition, right? They were years ahead because they were so good at growth and optimization, etc. But it was the undergrad students that won, and it was because if you look at this, let me go back. If you look at this, these check marks here at the top, the executives and ChatGPT were very good at learning really quick. They were good at quick wins, at optimizing, at efficiency, and they were very good at short-term thinking. However, they did not do well when chaos came in, when something unexpected came in. And that's where the students really shined because they had been looking ahead and they didn't have any problem adapting and making changes really quickly. They hadn't gotten really stuck in that productivity optimization box. So undergrads won. Oh, I'm going backwards again.
They still had that very elastic mind as they
Yeah,
were looking at the challenges, whereas the executives and the GPT really got focused and siloed on this is what we're good at growth, we're good at these things, but not thinking outside of the box.
exactly. And there's so many good things coming into the chat. I'm getting just because it's all so good. I feel like we could go on so many tangents. But both ChatGPT 4.0 and executives succumb to the same flaw, overconfidence in a system that rewards flexibility and long-term thinking. So when we talk about adaptability, you teach and then you listen and then you adapt. Adaptability is really important for that long-term thinking. So the way we like to recommend that you adapt is that you create a teach, learn, adapt, see what happens feedback loop at your organization. And a feedback loop is just when something you do creates a result, and then that result comes back around to influence what you do next. So in this thing, you would teach and you would listen. The result, then you adapt you see what happens next, and then you teach and listen and continue to adapt based on that. And if you do that, we get to the impacts. If you are teaching, if you are listening, and you are adapting, you have created a feedback loop that will help you balance that short-term benefit with long-term adaptability. And on this one, I'm just going to go through this really quick because I want to make sure we leave at least 10 minutes for questions. This is where I want to touch on productivity for just a minute because I'm so passionate about this. Because there's a feedback loop going on right now that looks like this in the world. We prioritize productivity and use tools like AI to save time. And then people save time, and then people can do more in less time. And then the question is, what happens next? People fill their time with higher value work, right? And this is not I'm not saying this is how it should be or anything, but I just want to pose the question of, is this what we really want as a society? People filling their time with higher value work. Because really, where does that lead? Isn't that kind of putting us into this growth, optimization, efficiency box and maybe leaving out some of the adaptability that the students demonstrated in this example? You see a lot of literature going around, even from the public sector, especially talking about efficiency, productivity, efficiency, operational efficiency, productivity. And then you also have the other side of it, like the American Institute of Stress last year, they came out with this report that 80% of employees report productivity anxiety. And workers say they are productive at work, but it comes at a cost, right? So the question really is that the feedback loop that we want? Are we adapting to what's coming in? And really, when we talk about designing AI adoption with humans in mind, I think Josh and I both love to imagine feedback loops that look a lot like this, where we prioritize people and then we use the tools to help them save time. People save time when using AI. And then really what happens next? Like, are we really just putting that back into saved work? They now have more time. This could be the greatest give back of time in the history of the world to humans. You know, people are saving at a minimum of an hour a week, most people 10 hours a week, some people up to weeks of time using this technology. And what are we going to do with that time? Are we really just going to turn it into more work? So that's just a plug about productivity. In inclusion, make sure with everything that you welcome perspective sharing, even about things that are as mainstream as productivity. You know, what do we really want? Welcome perspectives so that you have a balance of that short-term and long-term thinking, because what we really want to be is the ChatGPT 4.0, the execs and the students all in one. We want to be good at optimization, good at efficiency, and also very adaptable and good at long-term thinking. And that is really where we end with this impact. Josh, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, if you think of the broad nature of AI as it frees up your time, that gives you time to learn more, that gives you time to really focus on other things that can like continue to build you as a person. And AI is a huge part of self-driving vehicles. And when we start to think about self-driving vehicles, we can start to think about resource optimization. Is why does everybody have to have a car when you can have one just show up when you need it, schedule ahead, goes and it drops you off? We have so many resources that are just cars that are parked in garages on the street in a parking lot that are just unused for a certain period of time. But then you also have that time while you're in there. Like if you're riding a train, you have time while you're on the train to read a book, to listen to a podcast, to write a poem, to write song lyrics. You see that you have this massive give back of time to humanity, which is just going to be incredible for the opportunity for innovation, the opportunity for higher quality of life, higher happiness. And if we just jam the box full and we keep jamming the box full and jamming the box full, that's not doing yourself any justice. So it's really important to continue to think and to continue to set this culture of we need to continue focus on our own well-being, our well-being, our family balance. Overworking yourself has been seen as, oh my gosh, they're such a go-getter. They're like the best. But gosh, it burns you out. 12 and a half years in state government, being a workaholic, is something I'm still recovering from. And I left January 10th. So you're not doing yourself any justice, or your family, or your relationships, or anything else if you just continue trying to fill the time you free up with more work.
Someone earlier also mentioned something about the environment. I think this is an opportunity to just relook at everything that we do. How do we work? How do we work with the environment? This is technology that could help us just reallocate things in amazing ways and really balance it out. Really quickly, just want to say we do have a program. So the AI Dialogues is a program Josh and I are delivering to lots of state agencies right now. We do the executive track with mentorship where we will train someone in your organization as we go so that then they can continue the training when we leave. We have the operational user track. We set up a community of practice for you, and then we hand that off to the folks that we've mentored throughout the program, so that then they can continue to keep that culture growing within you. There's so much literacy that needs to be done. There's so much resource out there. So our goal is just to get in, educate, mentor, and then hand it off to your team. And then we're always there to support your team as they need it. I'm going to put a link in the chat really quick. Josh just put one in, a beginner's guide to artificial intelligence, but I'm going to put one in that is a form that if you're interested, and if you just have feedback on this session, feel free to put it in the free form part of the form. But I'm going to put that in there. Feel free to contact us. We would love to hear from you. And we have 9 minutes for questions, which is only 1 minute less than my goal.
One short blurb on my little link there. This is actually a generative application development that I built, that is using generative AI to explain AI. So just go in, push play, and see what it does, and enjoy.